if technology and paperwork were enough, we wouldn't have this conversation at all because most organizations already have policies. Yes. And they have training, they have audits, they have even external and internal audits and certificates as well. And yet, incidents keep happening all the time. Not because the firewall failed, not because encryption was missing, it's because a human being under pressure made a decision that made sense at the time the decision was made. Yeah. This is not a failure of intelligence. This is not negligence. This is reality. This is exactly where ISO 27001 lives. Let me tell you a little bit of a story. When I was working with a financial institution, they were trying to verify bank accounts with callback, and that was the control. But one day at the end of the month, a customer a vendor was actually pressuring a little bit on, I need to approve this because of the salaries and the payroll and everything. And someone approved that payroll. Not because the person was careless, not because the person was irresponsible. They were trying to do the job, but the control failed because of human behavior. Yeah. So we are talking about that when technology is not enough. Oh, sorry, I was supposed to be the first slide, the first word that comes to your mind. And when technology alone is not enough. So technical controls like firewalls, encryption are necessary but insufficient to fully prevent security when in the middle of the whole process we have people. Human errors under pressure often, cause security breaches, and even the most robust technical and procedural controls are under risk. And attackers are very smart about that. So they always try to go around and exploit those predictable human behaviors like rushing tasks, the one that I just described, social engineering, very common as well, phishing, phishing, all the kind of attacks that rely on human behavior. So that's why Verizon in the 2025 data breach investigation report, they say that the involvement of the human element remains roughly around 60%, which is pretty much the same figure that they had last year in 2024. So it means that 60% of every incident involves human elements somehow. So this is a very important element that we have here. What we can do to elevate the role of human in our set of controls, in particular with using 27001. So that's why, the act number 2 is why human error is the wrong starting point. So this is a very particular question I want to highlight tonight. People are the weakest link. We hear that very, very often. You hear it, you might have said it as well. And on the surface, it sounds logical if we think about it. People click links, people reuse passwords, people bypass controls. But is people actually the weakest link in the system? For example, in aviation, we don't say pilots are the weakest links. Or in healthcare, we don't say nurses are the weakest links. Yeah. In those industries, assuming something important, humans will make mistakes and humans will work under pressure. Humans will adapt when systems don't fit in reality. So they design systems that catch errors early, slow down bad decisions, and support good decisions. Information security, on the other hand, often does the opposite. We design controls assuming perfect attention, assuming that the humans don't make mistake. We have perfect memory, we have perfect behavior. That's the kind of things, that's how we design controls by default. So that's why it's important to shift that culture from blaming design thinking to empowering people. That's the way we ensure that we empower and strengthen our security posture. You know, in 27001, we never said that we are going to eliminate human error, but we talk about, for example, competence in the clause 7.1. We build awareness, we communicate clearly, we monitor performance, and we improve continuously. So that's why organizations should design systems that support decision making and anticipate any environmental challenge or any human challenge regarding the control. So I just wanted um, to see if everyone is following. I want to throw a poll into the conversation. When an incident review says human error, when you read about that or when you deal with that in your own organizations, what usually happened? What do you think it usually happened? A, system did not support the decision. The risk was not visible. C, the pressure was not acknowledged. Or D, the behavior was predictable. So what do you guys think when a security incident happens around the organization or any organization you know? So please throw your answer in the chat. What do you think it would be the main reason behind a security incident? Pressure, okay. Sanjay C, Paul D. Yeah, I would say that there is no right or wrong answer, but I do believe that it's not people failure, it's a design failure, designing the control. Because at the end, when we put the control in place, we are always thinking. Be Satya, thank you. The risk was not visible. Is very sound. I mean, makes a lot of sense as well, because sometimes when the people that design the control is not the one that runs the control in practice. So that's the kind of things that are very common errors when we deal with control failure, is that someone else put the control in place and even runs the control in a control testing, but they don't run the control in practice, and sometimes that stress test over the control is not successful when it comes to practice in reality. So that's why introducing human risk management. I want to be clear about human risk management. Human risk management is not blaming employees, is not more mandatory training, which is something that we use a lot in our organizations, and is not another compliance dashboard. Human risk management is more about making human behavior more visible inside the ISMS, Information Security Management System. So instead of guessing, human risk management ask, where are the people struggling? Identify across the whole control process where where people do not understand or where people failed in enforcing the control. Which risks repeat? That's the second question. Um, that happen. How often the control has failed in the past. What about internal audit? Let's check the reports, the previous reports. There are vulnerabilities or there are weakness in the controls. That's the kind of things we need to identify when we start to analyze human risk as part of the control process. And what behaviors are predictable. So that's a very important element as well. What behaviors we have repeatable across the process when we perform a control within the ISMS. So instead of assuming awareness, human risk management measures understanding, engagement, and patterns. So when we have those elements very clearly in the equation, we can understand the involvement of humans within the performance of the controls. So based on that, what is the sign of success within ISMS for human risk management? So we need to understand that people read policies and have their own interpretation of the policy, although the document could be very solid. People will make trade-offs, works around, trying to speed the process up. And also people will respond to incentives. So sometimes it's like when you complete your training, you have another incentive. That kind of, or, the completion of the control or following the controls could have an incentive program. So I don't know if anyone has a question at this stage or everybody is following, but I just wanted to put in the chat as well, what behavior have you identified in your organization that you would like to change in this new year? For example, MFA approvals. So I would like to change that, or I would like to change any other process or any other control in my organization that is becoming clumsy, is becoming non-dynamic, and refrains us to have a more dynamic control environment. Any answer, anyone? So I would say, for example, MFA approvals, is something that when I ask around, a lot of organizations, a lot of people would like to change to make it more dynamic because, there are controls that probably, passwordless, for example, is something that a lot of organizations are implementing, not only because of security, but also trying to avoid the immense amounts of calls that help desk receive to reset passwords, for example. Yeah, so that's the kind of things. Is keeping the organization secure while we implement more dynamic controls that make the organization more agile, and the internal controls as well. Okay. So moving to the next topic is leadership and commitment. So let's talk about a little bit of leadership and the role of leadership within human risk management. So I have a poll here. So sorry, I like to be a little bit more interactive in these online sessions. So when speed and security conflict in your organization, which usually wins? Speed, security? We have one in the middle, we reconcile with guardrails, or we flip a coin and hope for the best. So when you have, your control and security as well, so you get the things done, you work around a little bit your control, security first, regardless. Yeah, so I have Victor here, speed. Satya, we have speed as well. We have, yep. So that's a very common conflict. How C should win, says Paul. Yeah, some were, meeting in the middle, and that's what I was referring previously, the kind of things that how my controls are coming, because identify the controls are coming clumsy, that are becoming, instead of a control, are becoming a sort of roadblocks, and make it more dynamic, or replace them, or review them in order to make it more agile and dynamic for to keep the rhythm of our organization while keeping it secure at the same time. Okay, C should win. So yeah, we have, as I said before, we have um, clause 5.1, which is the one related to leadership, and they say that leadership must demonstrate commitment to information security, and that sounds very, very obvious. But I want you guys to think about how leadership commitment is usually demonstrated. How, as leaders, we can demonstrate that we are committed to security. So, can we do it through a policy, for example, or these corporate messages that we send from time to time, like, don't forget to renew your password, don't forget to complete your training, or, that sort of slide that appears from time to time in quarterly reviews or in corporate meetings, like, don't forget about security, you are important, that kind of thing. So, is that actually or usually the techniques that are used by leaders to show commitment in security? But we need to understand as well that we are reflecting our behavior in our teams and in our organization. So we need to understand not only what we show, but what leaders praise, what leaders question, and what leaders ignore as well. So those behaviors permeate into the organization and um, somehow reflect our team's behavior in the future. So, for example, if a project misses a deadline because security slowed it down, because of a roadblock, what happens? What happens in your organization when something like that occurs? So, if someone bypasses a control because they need to get the things done, what happens as well? So, we have the two um, factors in the organization. So, what happens when a scenario B or scenario A occur? Yeah, this is where human risk is created or reduced, not at the control level, but at the expectation level. So ISO 27001 assumes that leadership will shape behavior, but many organizations treat leadership as outside the control environment instead. It's not part of the control environment, it's not part of the process of the ISMS. So organizations treat leadership like an umbrella for the whole process. So it's when, the leadership narratives that align security with business create a culture. So that's why, when people follow leaders wherever they go, in the workaround route or the roadblock route as well. But this is the leaders must engage visibly and integrate security into business processes. That's what we expect from security leaders. That's the only way they drive the change, the cultural change, or improve the cultural the security culture in an organization. So that's the two ways. So sometimes, a leader changes significantly the control environment, even, the security posture of an organization. And people say, before and after this CISO joins the organization, we had this environment before, and once he or she commits into the organization, we significantly improved our posture because he brought or she brought a new philosophy, a new vision of how security should be in the organization as well, or the other way around. Some people might identify like, oh, we were a very secure organization and we had people in leadership that had very poor philosophy or culture about security. Some controls were even taken off the equation, and a security incident happened. Some people may, um, vendor downgrades, that kind of things, to save some money here, some money there, or engage third parties that are not fully certified in security, and that has a consequence in the short term, medium term. So that's the kind of things that a leader can have, the impact a leader can have in an organization. So when human risk management says leadership is important, it's not only because of the title, or it's not only because of they have people in charge, people are reporting line. It's because leaders reflect behavior, and people tend to repeat or follow that kind of behavior across the organization as well. So when awareness is raised or declined, that reflects usually in how the leader is adopting or implementing as well the security posture across organization. So it's not only CISO, it's usually as well manager level, even individual contributors level as well. So once the leadership is committed, everything changes for good. So once the leader becomes accountable as well, and that has that kind of impact, you will see it across the not only ISMS but the whole security posture for the whole organization. Moving to the next subject is how we can, we have our security posture, we have leadership that drive the change. We know what we are going to aim when we implement ISO 27001. We have identified as well how human behavior impacts the effectiveness of the control, and now we are moving into policies. So we have everything, all the elements ready. Now we have to put all that together and create policies that work in real life. So from theory to decision support, from the paper, the policies that look really nice in very nice documents that we send to auditors once a year, or for SOC 2 or for certifications, how we put that in practice. Yeah. So let's talk about, clause 5.2. That clause says that most organizations probably, requires the policies to be well defined, communicated, and understood. But we have too many policies as well. A normal organization, a standard organization, has a lot of documents related to policies as well, and yet people still work around them, which is, something that is really got the attention of people related to security. But not because people are reckless, it's because policies often describe that, how security should work in theory. But some people, as I mentioned before, when you go into practice, the process has nothing to do with the description in comparison with how the process is run in theory. So this is how, the process is actually getting done. So, as I said before, ISO 27001 requires that policies to be very well defined, communicated, which is important, and truly understood through behavior. But I would like to highlight the word understood. That's the word that really matters, because you can have your document ready. You can send the document to everybody. You can put it on the intranet. You can make it accessible to everybody. You can even send reminders from time to time. But are the policies really understood? That's the key point here. It's not only a checkbox. We need to realize how people understand the policies. And when it's very common to see people just checking the boxes or attending the trainings, but not really understanding how policies should work. Yeah. So because why a policy, you can know when a policy is not being followed. And when you realize about that, you can fix the system. Instead of blaming people, you can see where the control fails, not only in the application, but in how the control is understood across the organization. So that's why, you know, um, ISO 27001 always applies continuous improvement, because you have to go back to your policies from time to time and see if the controls have failed. You should have that in your dashboard and see which controls could be improved as well, and which policies. But when you talk about policies as well, um, the main comment that you have is who can understand or who can memorize a policy that has 20 pages, for example. So a lot of people have come with very good ideas about simplifying policies to make, especially the ones that are used in common basis. So there are policies that, if you put a little bit of work here and there, you can summarize a policy into a one-page checklist, for example. So that's something that to think about. And I would like to ask you guys in the chat, name one policy that will be useful for you guys to have in your organization in a format of one page, like checklist. So if you guys could have a policy like, cheat sheet or something like that, which policy in based on your experience you would like to see in that kind of resources or that kind of format? Is there any policy in particular? Have you thought about that? Is an idea that you have seen before? Um, do you have by any chance any project or something that could help you to simplify some policies? So if you cannot think about any policy at the moment, this might be food for thought. You can probably discuss it with your team and with your managers as well to see how we can make the policies less clumsy, more understandable, and at the same time will be, more related to how the security process is understood across organization, which eventually will make the organization more secure. So, yep, that's the third point here is transform policies into checklist, prompts, and automated guardrails to support compliance during critical tasks. Okay, so moving to the next section of the session is awareness and communication that stick. So again, going through that, so we have all the elements in place that we are moving into policies that are documented and understood, and now we have to find out how to raise awareness in the organization and how we communicate that. So it's more than training, security training, very famous thing. When we join an organization, we are usually bombarded with, a number of compulsory security training. Even some organizations have so many that people even can spend the first 2 or 3 days in the organization just finishing compulsory compliance training, which is really, really a really hard task to complete. Obviously, we have to, but at the same time, it's like after 1 or 2 days doing compulsory training, do we memorize that, or is it just trying to go through them and get to real work, to get that off our plate? So that's the kind of things we need to think about, because even though you have to refresh compulsory security training from time to time, every 6 months or every year, depending on the organization policy, it is really hard to identify how well the policies and the trainings are understood across organization, because it's more about raising awareness, not checking a box. So it's not attendance, it's not completion of the training. It's more about what comes to mind when someone has to make a decision, for example. Yeah. So how robust are my controls when someone has to make a decision under pressure that could work around the control and create a situation that could originate a security incident. Because some people, I mean, most people don't forget training, is people forget relevance. When you do training in bulk, we forget how relevant for my role, for your role, or for the organization, and particular training could be. So this is you know we that's why ISO 27001 is moving beyond annual training and is more focused on micro nudges, which is a strategy I have seen across some organizations that work really well, and scenario drills, which is stressing the control in practice, which is a very good technique as well to understand and learn in when the control is actually put in test. Also, you cannot understand something if you cannot measure it. So measuring security awareness as well would be good in terms of behavioral outcomes, like for example, phishing experiments or phishing testing. This is very common, and yet some people fail into, you know, these emails that are a little bit dodgy, and people click. So phishing exercise, more than numbers, is a reflection of how effective our training could be. So although you run phishing exercises like every 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, people a percentage of people still click on those links. So is very important, and that makes you think about how effective basic controls could be. And also, embedding security into workflows is a key component about how our culture, organizational culture related to security, could be elevated. So, as I mentioned before, awareness is what comes to mind when someone has to make a decision quickly. So a good technique is make a short, you know, campaigns with short messages, with punchy phrases, with reminders about that people can relate to in the day-to-day basis, and most important that you can measure what you have in place. So how do you communicate it? How you can measure it as well. And moving to the act number 7, which is almost the end of our session today. So let's talk about putting humans into risk assessments, or how we can get into proactive behavioral controls. I brought for you three real life cases. But while we have MGM resorts, this happened in 2023. Phishing, I just mentioned that phishing is a lot of people click into those dodgy emails. So phishing is something that is becoming very common as well. Social engineering, and through the help desk, they gain admin access, and they caused outages in the organization of that, big, huge resorts and across Las Vegas, and the estimated loss was admitted in the vicinity of $100, $100 million. So how did they fix it? They fix it through strong service desk. So they elevated the controls there, privilege access safeguards, and playbooks from pre-texting. So playbooks, this is really important. I have run, I have seen in several organizations that they lack playbooks in the main systems. So this is something that you can take into the set of controls that you implement through ISO 27001, and make your organization safer and your controls more robust. We have this case from Uber in 2022. MFA fatigue that I just mentioned as well in a previous section of this session, and social engineering over WhatsApp. So once inside, the attacker found hard-coded secrets and escalated. They took control of some servers across the organization. So how did they fix it? Through resistant MFA, deny by default for repeat prompts, secrets management as well. We go back to basic to information management. How come an organization as big as Uber had coded secrets in a space that was vulnerable? So this is the kind of things that you don't understand, but still happen, because I'm sure that Uber has the nicest documents in a very nice, format, and PDF, and even printed everywhere, and still they have information security failures, such as coded secrets in a vulnerable location. And also lateral movement detection, because obviously once an attacker gets in, is lateral movement is basically ABC of an attack. And this mask that happens in 2017, so supply chain foothold plus flat networks and other basic controls turn into global outage. So recovery proved the value of segmentation and resilient backups. So, you know, uh, um, that's a basic control that fails with flat networks, but at the same time, they had very solid backup environment, and they recovered the system very quickly because of that. So, one loss and one gain here. Um, they fix it by improving network segmentation, Active Directory protection, and backup tested for blast radius scenarios. I remember when I started in this security system, in the information security world, 20 years ago. I remember that I was working for a firm that audited a very small farm, but they were very productive and they had a lot of customers, and they had the data center just next, very close to a river. The river went out of control after a few days of rain, and the data center was basically flooded. But they said, no, we have our at the time was backup tapes. Or we have our tapes in another location. No worries. Let's go to that. Let's use the tapes. Let's restore everything. And I remember they put the first tape, nothing. Second tape, nothing. So yeah, the application they used for backups were they showed complete messages, but they never tested the tapes. They never checked the tapes. So yes, they had plenty of tapes there. The most of them were empty. So that's, a control over the control. Yeah, you have your backups there. Obviously now it's a different story because we don't use tapes anymore, but that will tell you how you can, even the controls that are robust and you trust them, you have to check some controls are suitable to be checked after the control is in place. So that's an important thing. Oh, sorry. So, you know, most when you see your registers, you have systems, you have vendors, you have vulnerabilities, in your risk register, for example. But um, not many of them, or just a few of them, they consider human error as part of the analysis that you do. So when you analyze risks in your register, you not only identify, analyze, and treat your risks, but also you have to identify behavioral patterns, recurring mistakes, and how predictable our personnel could be when they respond to pressure in particular controls. So again, once you identify how human behavior is visible, you can manage it, you can measure it, you can manage it as well. Not in a perfect way, but in a realistic way. Well, that's the way it should be. So now we are moving into, I'm conscious of the time, we are moving to the final act at 8, measurement, review, and continuous improvement. Metrics that leader can own. So this is very important. When you have trends, indicators, and signals, is not to shame people, is to ask better question. Why this happened? Why did this happen? What made sense to the persons at the time is like putting yourself into the role of the person that runs the control, and what made sense to the person at the time that they over even involuntarily they work around the control, and what pressure did the system create as well. Is this control, this system designed to make decisions under pressure? Yes, no, and if yes, how we can improve for those kind of situations that might be once in a month, once in a year, but that could overtake the whole effort that we have put in place to implement ISO 27001. So that's why it's important. Clause 9.1, 9.3 in regarding performance evaluation and management reviews. So that's why security matters at this stage, and that's how our security matures across the time. So it's not putting tight controls, is designing systems that expect let's say humans to be humans. Yeah. So let's design this control considering that it will be conducted, performed, and tested by another person. So when you have that in mind, your control could be as robust as you want, but flexible at the same time. So it won't become a roadblock, and it won't become um, a control that everybody works around. So I would like to close, going back a little bit to where we started. So ISO 27001 was never written to secure system in isolation, and actually it's a very well-structured system that has several domains, but at the same time is run by people. So at this stage, I think we all have concluded that people are the most important element across ISMS and across actually the organization. Because information security at the end is not firewall, is not detection, intrusion detection systems, that kind of thing. It's not something that we install, it's something that we actually run. It's a tool that we humans use to make the organization more secure. So let me close it by saying that a tool, a control, a framework, all those elements are great, but it everything run by people. People make decisions about information. Firewalls don't decide, encryption don't decide, policies don't decide. People do instead. Every day, when you go to work, for the ones that work in security, when you go to work, even person in other departments that have controls in place, when you go to work every day, you work under pressure, you work with incomplete information, and you try to balance, that remember the pole, the speed and the security and the service and something that has to be delivered on time. So that's why humans are the most important element in the ISMS. So not because people are weak, it's because people is they are the only factor in the whole system that can adapt. You know, trust that people are competent. We should trust that people can learn, and people, when supported, will do the right thing. That's the principle when we should write our controls and our ISMS, because at the end, technologies don't save organizations. Technology run by people save organization. And at the end, if the organization allows them, as leaders, you empower our people and say, you are not the weakest link, you are the most important one. When you empower your people, and assume that people are human and still believe they're capable of excellence, you elevate instantly your security culture and your security effectiveness. So in this equation, ISO 27001 gives you the structure, and human risk management gives you the insight. Because at the end, leadership gives people the permission to care, to speak, to take care of the controls. But when that happens, when people embraces security, your organization your controls become more effective, and your organization becomes more secure. And when security becomes real, it's not perfect, but it's resilient, and that's could be strong enough to protect your organization at the end. So I don't know if you have any question. This is the last slide. I want to thank you all for staying there, for being patient, for understanding my broken English as well. And also, you can find me on LinkedIn. I saw that Gori shared my profile there. More than happy to connect, more than happy to share any insights of our session today. And also, I run on Instagram or as Connect with Omar. I only have a few posts there, but that initiative is, becoming very important to me, that I don't talk about high level of security, but also the human factor in security. So more than happy to see you there as well. And any comment, any feedback is more than welcome. And I want to thank you all again for staying there in the session. And I hope you found it productive and useful.
Thank you so much, Omar, for that insightful session. It was very engaging, and with all the polls and the questions that you asked, like I'm sure like we're about to get some questions. So yeah, the
Yeah.
chat box is now officially open for the Q&A session. So if you have any questions, it could be your chance to connect directly with Omar. And side by side, I'm also sharing his LinkedIn, so you can always keep in touch with him. If you
Yeah.
have any questions in future, you can reach out to him and connect with him. So first question that we have here: how a auditor play a role in the HRM?
Well, I have been an auditor for a number of years as well. So, an auditor basically, the role is identifying how solid the control could be. So, when an auditor, for example, tests a control, it is very important to check how the control was self-tested and how the control was independently tested internally in the organization. So with those results, an auditor can have an idea about how solid the control is and how that control or that the humans that run the control can influence the effectiveness or not of the control. So that's very important. An auditor performing that walkthrough. The walkthroughs, I mean, could be a key element in testing controls because that gives you an idea how the control is run from end to end. I don't know if Satya, that answers your question. I don't know if someone has further questions as well. I just want to thank you as well because here in Australia it's 2:23 in the morning. So
Oh, that's definitely understandable, Omar. And like as you all know that Omar is from Australia. So thank you so
yeah,
much for, taking your time out in the middle of the night and conducting this session for us, because it
no worries.
absolutely means much.
Has been a
And
pleasure to me for, I do appreciate you guys having me today. And also,
of
I
course,
welcome any comment and any feedback, more than welcome, and more than happy
of
to,
course,
yeah.
of course. And yes, so if anyone have any question, like they can quickly drop them in the chat box so that we can quickly wrap up the Q&A session, since it's kind of getting late for Omar as well. So that would be highly appreciated.
Yeah. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and
Yeah, I guess like we're not getting any more questions. Maybe it's because we already had the question and answers in the beginning, and yeah, like with that, I guess it would be right time, Omar, to make your final statement and let us know about your overall experience about this experience.
well, yeah, has been fantastic sharing this time with you guys, and I do believe that even with these times with artificial intelligence and other factors playing a big role and will play a bigger role in the future, I still do believe that human will we'll see having a very important factor in the control environment, and that's why is my focus is how we can drive human behavior, how we can understand human behavior as well in the organization, and how we can avoid those security incidents that some people say, oh, it was someone who clicked a setting or someone who forgot to do those things. So that, reduce that narrative and go back to how our controls could be better to avoid that kind of thing. So that's the main purpose. As leader, you guys, you have a very important role, and I trust that you are taking a very useful organization